hundreds of maps, lots of different things, an interface for viewing everything. They're not interested in that. They were interested in a number, just a number, or how to change the legislation. And they just wanted the science so that they could change the legislation. They really were not interested in the pictures. Okay, they acknowledge that they're beautiful, but for them, the bottom line is they need certain things. And maybe the future generation of policymakers who will have some of these more GI skills. Like, you know, when I was studying at university, there was no GIS. I was making maps on paper. It's a long time ago. But this new generation getting all these skills will come with a different mindset, I think. And maybe these discussions will be easier. So those are just my 2 comments.
Okay, so you have now highlighted certain approaches on how to make actually EO and GI more attractive to public bodies. Is there anything else that comes to your mind that can can be actually applied to make this domain more appealing and more used and more uptaken?
May I?
Okay, we have the participant. Yes, please, Francisco.
Thank you. Well, I think what we are now speaking of, it's not really about skills for geographical information and Earth observation. I think we are speaking about applications of these 2 tools. And they are not exactly a theme per se. They are tools to analyze problems on Earth, on maritime affairs, on forestry, on agriculture, on culture, on defense, whatever. So if this discussion is about skills, the problem is to identify which skills are necessary for with what target groups to develop or to up or reskill themselves to produce information using these tools, and not really what the applications using these tools could be, because that we have been doing for quite a long time. What are the applications that are interesting for farmers, for local authorities, for policymakers? Policymakers sometimes do not want beautiful maps. They do need to implement directives that need numbers. So they need the results from using GIS and Earth observation to produce these numbers. And if they don't ask for a map, you shouldn't give them a map. But what we are talking here is about what skills are needed for people who want to reskill or upskill, or for people who are in school. What skills are needed for Earth observation and geographical information systems to be used more productively. And
thank you very much. I think
that's where the focus should be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Francisco, for your intervention. And I don't think we have to really split the skills from the applications, and that's part of the same picture. But maybe Simon, you have some reflections on the skills that the skills aspect that might be one of the barriers also for the uptake of the data and further conversion into applications, right? Yeah.
Maybe you could lead into that with a little reaction on what Linda and Francisco just said about what policymakers, I don't try to speak for all policymakers, but certainly I think they're right to say that there is, and I'm speaking maybe in climate most, there has up to now, particularly for the land part of climate, been a bit of an obsession with the numbers and providing the number. And in particular for land and LULUCF in particular, it is about not really doing much extra. For land, it's always been trying to basically keep things stable. And therefore to deliver literally this holy grail of the annual reporting to the UNFCCC, which is for any of you who want to have a sort of horror nightmare experience of looking at data management, just check out the Excel spreadsheets that are submitted to the UNFCCC, because it looks like something from about 1993 or something, for those who don't remember. I think they're produced with XML and whatever, but nevertheless, they're submitted in this horrendous table that you can't even adjust. It's really messy and horrible. But anyhow, there's an obsession about the number. Now, the Director General that I work for in the Commission is called DG Climate Number? No, it's not called DG Climate Number. It's called Climate Action. And the point is to try to get action. And with land, we've only just started that. We now actually place more so-called ambition into actually making the land element contribute more positively towards the way we do climate. And therefore, the policymakers need to understand where and what and when they will do something, how much it will cost. Is this the optimal solution? Who do they have to be in contact with? How are they going to ensure that by a certain date, we achieve it not for the purpose of a binding regulation, but to ensure that we are in a state that we have an agricultural system that is still able to function, because we don't have a situation where there is no water or there is storm damage or whatever it happens to be. So there is a shift that needs to take place. And therefore, I do think that the administrators, the policy decision makers, right up to the high level, need to start to be aware of how geographically data are crucial to these decisions. And so, yes, out of the end of this will come a number that is reported to UNFCCC.
So what does it require on the skills side within the EO and GI domain?
It means what it means that there has to be an outflow, unfortunately, from probably the sector of that builds up this body of specialists. I mean, 30 years ago, 30 years ago, my first jobs were GIS analyst, but I don't touch anything to do with maps and GI today. What I do is try to write regulations and policy frameworks for action to take place in this domain in climate. So perhaps, and there are not many of us. So in Klima, there's two of us. René Kolditz, you had yesterday, is the other one in the team. And there need to be more people who are aware of this kind of thing. And so there has to be an outflow also. That's a growth path, maybe for people who want to develop a career, that maybe they will emerge in that direction. So develop these skills to also understand how to take it to policy.
Thank you. Anna, you raised your hand. So what, please?
Yes, well, actually, there are two things. If we're going to focus, and we need to focus on the skills, I think a very basic skill that is very necessary in this job is actually studying geography. Because studying geography gives you a wide range of disciplines that makes you understand how the whole comes together, the interrelationships of things. So this is a basic that, when I studied geography at London University a long time ago, everybody told me, what are you going to do with it? It's not medicine, it's not this, it's not that. Well, I did a lot with it because it still gives me a very good ground, a very good understanding of when I'm looking and discussing a project, I can connect things together. I can see the interrelationships of the geology and the soils and the vegetation and the forest and the climate. I mean, this is a very important skill to have. If you have somebody who's only studied how to do GIS, well, this person cannot look at a map and understand what he or she is looking at. So this is a very basic skill that I think we need to be doing. Another skill, to go back to what was being said before, is when we do workshops with policymakers, we don't go showing off how much we know in science and technology. We don't go off. We go to listen and we go to discuss. And we do this by, normally you have a room, you're putting in a room stakeholders, policymakers, and farmers, for example, because we work a lot with farmers. And there is a psychology of how to handle this. For example, in the morning, in the first hour, there is a lot of tension in the room and everybody wants to prove they're right. So as a moderator, we let them do that. We don't interfere. We let them say whatever they need to say. And then we have lunch. And after lunch, we start really then discussing. And then we maneuver. We can say, kind of keep a hand on the discussion. And we try to direct the discussion the way that it could lead to a conclusion on both sides. But this is a skill, this is a technique, this is a psychological way of how to handle a workshop, how to make people come together, and how to make people agree together. So there are different type of skills. We may call this a soft skill, I don't know, that would get results, because it is, you know, all these nuances on soft skills. Please don't throw them away, because these type of skills are what brings tangible results, not just a map thrown at somebody. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, would you have something to say on that, since you're also working with projects that involve, I mean, a very diverse group of people and from different parts of the world. So what do you see as really the trends in the skills required to bring EOGI more to the both public and private sector, and then being used as a tool for decision making and yeah, let's say daily processes of managing organizations?
Yeah, okay, so I would really second what Anna's just said about geography as a discipline. So I'm a physical geographer, and so I picked up everything else, but I have that kind of spatial overview that I notice other people don't if they haven't studied geography. And a real case in point is some of our developers. So there's actually a really good program in Wiener Neustadt. It's kind of a combination of spatial plus IT, and those people are great because they have this fusion of both skills that they bring to the table. We have other developers who are pure IT, and it's actually very hard to talk in a spatial way with them because they don't know what spatial queries are. They don't understand things spatially. So I think this is a big one, is how can we get much more basic spatial knowledge learning into other disciplines? So we at the University of Leeds, we used to have a master's that was an integration between IT and our geography department. And so we would send people back and forth, and they would end up with this much more interdisciplinary approach to things. And yeah, it's trying to foster that. I think it would be really valuable for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's come back to the question on the availability of, let's say, the human talent and the capital. So there is no secret, there is really war for talent going on in various parts of the world, as well as in various sectors and industries, including the EOGI domain. And just let me read you that according to the recent Gartner study, up to 38% of the employees are currently looking to change jobs within the next 12 months. Furthermore, this survey discovered that 32 of the UK workers have at least 2 other job offers to consider. So in this rapidly changing market, finding and retaining qualified employees is really becoming difficult. I come from a country where you have 11 people per square kilometer. We have totally different challenges on how to get access to the knowledge and how to get access to people. So we have to think in different ways. So what, in your opinion, are the best strategies for developing the highly sought after EOGI skills in both the public and private sector from what you've seen, from what you have experienced? Yeah, Simon?
So I think the Commission is well known for having an incredibly inflexible and overly structured way of certainly recruiting its long-term officials. And being a geographer, of course, I'm sitting in a room probably completely filled with geographers, so we can speak frankly to each other. There are few geographers, but perhaps the solution is not to only get geographers, of course. We've got to find ways. So therefore, I think there needs to be a way to vulgarize the perception of what geoinformation can contribute to in policy making. No disrespect for the 2 comments about by the geographers just now, but we cannot rely on just recruiting geographers. I mean, it will not happen that we will have a structure that favors recruitment of geographers in the Commission, so as a public service organization. So how to actually motivate, therefore, an interest in the subjects. I mean, once you're in a public service organization or public service, you can usually move between different policy themes quite easily. And we see in climate that we get a lot of people coming to work for us. Actually, again, Ingrid made a very, very valid point about motivating. She was talking about teenage girls passionate about saving the world. But I think most people who come to work in climate policy first think about it because they are passionate about doing something for climate. And it's there an opportunity to be able to help them understand how the perception of climate is very much linked to the spatial understanding of where the interactions are taking place, whether they're related to industrial emissions, transport emissions, agricultural emissions, whatever, and for them to realize the value of that. So I don't think it's necessarily a skill, but it's certainly a pathway inside a recruitment of a public service organization that there could very much be an emphasis for focusing around the motivation, intuitive motivation of the people themselves, and then using that as a kind of, I don't know, train that you hook on some wagons that are associated with this kind of awareness of how these data benefit policymaking.
Thank you. Linda, Anna, what would you say regarding the strategies for developing these EOGI skills? What would you see as the most effective ones?
Did you want to go first, Anna, or should I just say something?
Linda, please.
No,
Okay, so I just wanted to say, I wasn't actually advocating for geographers. What I was really advocating is for new courses that integrate all these different skills. Like, I studied physical geography, but I had a bit of IT and I had a bit of that. I just think there should be much more interdisciplinary programs coming out. And there are examples, rather than these really siloed disciplines. Okay, so that's really what I'm advocating for, but that somehow within any discipline, some spatial skills are learned, whether you're studying economics or political science or vice versa. If you're a geographer, you should be studying some of these other skills. So it's more that. But I see the value of geography and the way we think spatially as a really important component of that. So that change has to come at university level. Okay, it can already start to come at school level. I think we're seeing a lot of geography going into schools, but geography, has never necessarily been valued as the discipline. I had the exact same experience as you, Anna. People said, what are you going to do with a geography degree? You're going to be a teacher? No, there's so many things you can do that you're unaware of when you're studying that discipline because it's not packaged that well enough. So anyway, what I'm saying is that it's up to universities to come up with more integrated programs that can then when you're recruiting people, they have a much broader skill base. In terms of within what you were talking about within the commission, I mean, I just think you've got to offer training opportunities. I was very jealous when I heard the first speaker about from the private sector about all the different opportunities and you give your employees. We don't do that. We have to learn this stuff ourselves, kind of. And I think that's brilliant. And I think that can be done at the private sector and that can be done in the public sector at the EU level. It's just offering people those opportunities to take courses, whether they're MOOCs, whether some kind of professional development so that they can learn some of these skills. And I think it's just encouraging that.
Thank you, Linda. Anna, would you have something to add?
Well, I just want to mention that in a previous lifetime, I was teaching geography to archaeologists and also teaching Earth observation to a master's course in hydrology. So, this is the interdisciplinary approaches that we are talking about. In actual fact, I also want to tell Simon that I'm very familiar with the commission since I've been working as an evaluator and reviewer and whatever, not with the space program since 2004, since the first GMES program started. Before Copernicus, it was called GMES. And in the first proposal that we had of GeoLand, which was the precursor for the land monitoring service, it just shows you how old I am, actually. All the partners were remote sensing people. And my first reaction was, and by the way, I was the only woman there, I said, who in hell is going to do this? You're just talking to each other. This project, remote sensing people are just talking to other EO people. What is going to be spin-off out of this? And everybody was looking at me as if I've fallen from the moon. What is she talking about? It has to be like this. And I said, no, we have to have stakeholders. And then, fortunately, there was a project officer who told me, okay, at the time we did hearings, we asked them to do the hearing, and you explain to them what you mean. And I had to explain to these very heavyweights, and I have to tell you, heavyweights, French and German EO people with from the big companies, big institutions, that this project has to serve somebody, that the results have to actually not serve other EO people, it has to serve a community. And that was very hard going, I can tell you. So now we have reached, I think we have gone a long way since then, because all the calls come out with, most of the calls come out with, this has to have an impact on the local community. Not always, but many of the time, many times. So we've come a long way. We have come a long way with this. So yeah, there is a history of this, a history of struggle, if I can say, to actually move the knowledge that is in Earth observation and could be in Earth observation and in GI to some purpose, to serve something. It's been a long way, it's been a long struggle. And I like to remind everybody of this. In the first meeting of Geoland, there was the ESA people wanting to discuss the Copernicus, the Sentinels. And they were sitting in one room, and the Geoland people were sitting in another room. And I physically got the people from the Geoland consortium to go and sit with the ESA people and tell them, if they are designing the Sentinels, you have to sit together, you have to tell them what you need. I mean, all this I'm just remembering now. This has happened 20 years ago. And this was, look, I had to do these things physically. I was a reviewer of this project for 4 years, and then of SAFER and all the other that came later, that eventually they turned into services. So I just want to tell you that.
Thank you, Anna. So what actually I'm gathering from what we've discussed is really in addition to what we technically learn, what skills we develop in the subjects we study, we still have to have a very good mix and balance of the soft skills, because we have to put the technical skills in the context and to translate the knowledge that we deliver from being technically trained to put it to the use, right? And that requires a lot of interdisciplinary cooperation, and we are coming back also to how ready our educational offers are to really face this interdisciplinarity. But we have a time to have the questions from the audience, because the time is really running, and I'm ready to both pass the microphones as well as to take the questions from the online audience and ask them to our panelists, please. Who is ready? Danny, I saw you were writing. Yes, you made some notes, so we start with you.
Well, it's not necessarily on the writing. Mm-hmm. That's for me.
Okay.
First, maybe I have an observation, because it's very interesting to see the different people around the table. First, being someone is first a GI expert doing things. We cooperated in the agriculture, and then go into policy. So, and someone else from GEM, so a private company, was a geographer and then geospatial expert. And now he's a human resource manager at a company, and that helps, it seems, to do some nice work. And then Linda, I think, he is first also geographer, geospatial expert, and then going rather working with citizens and so on, and having another role. And for me, it seems like it's a good choice to do first this type of work yourself, to be in there, understand not only data, but also real challenges, and then shift to policy making, policy support, whatever human resource management. So maybe we need more geospatial people in other positions in the geospatial sector. That's just a side comment. I have a question though, because I agree we focus a lot on Earth observation and geospatial data and technologies, but for me that's always only part of the coin, because you make the link to reality. So therefore, I'm very happy with developments towards the digital twins, because that pushes you to not only look to data and technology, but rather do the other way around, to start from a real challenge, a real case, and then you go and look how you can use the data and the technology to support you. And I think I agree that maybe in some cases in the past we did more the opposites. We have the technology and we try to find a problem. So I just want to have feedback or a reply from the panelists on this idea, whether that's a good thing or not. But that means also that the people working with Earth observation and GI data and technology should also have other skills. It is to analyze problems, maybe it's horizontal skill, but for me it's rather to observe and analyze and understand reality, physical space, human space, etc. So, and maybe those skills should maybe more stressed or being developed more. I don't know.
Yeah. Who would like to respond or reflect on Danny's comment, question? Yeah, 2 in 1. Linda?
No, I'm fully in agreement. I've seen many examples of people starting out with geography as a first degree and moving on to many other things. And I think it's exactly what you said, Anna. Geography gives you a kind of a way of looking at the world holistically in a different way than you might if you studied engineering or economics. It simply does. So I'm not saying we must be geographers, but can we somehow get some of that skill that we learn as geographers into other disciplines? That would be my comment. But I also think, and it's also though saying that geography and geoinformation has a great reputation now. Like I said, GIS didn't exist really. I mean, it sort of was, but it really wasn't. It wasn't taught because it wasn't available. And now there's just so much more. So I think it's just, we have to sell this discipline and have to sell it as something that a skill that others should learn. We have to take some responsibility for doing that. Is what I mean. Yeah.
Thank you. We had one more question, Jacobo, so I'd like to...
Anna raised it.
Yeah, and then we proceed with the reflection from Anna.
So the question,
yes, yeah, please.
I'd like to touch the next generation EU briefly. All countries are deeply involved in their recovery and resilience plans, receiving a huge amount of money basically to rebuild their countries to recover from the pandemic and also resolving problems we were even before the pandemic. And because most of the reforms are made at national level, but most of the interventions are at local level, beneficiaries at local levels, I study quite deeply what's happening in Italy, my country, and I see that because most of the beneficiaries are lacking of skills and capacity to take the challenge. For instance, our government recruited 6,000 people to support the 8,000 local authorities, municipalities. They published many profiles. None of them was even weakly related to geospatial, to something to understand spatial patterns, which, in my opinion, are necessary to achieve the objectives. So I'm sure that this was not happening before these capacity were inside the local authorities. But for me, is again another big lost opportunity to take up a lot of things we are discussing. And I would like just to hear your opinion about that.
Yeah. Simon, would you reflect on that?
But I think this comes back almost to the another version of the problem I was describing before. So without knowing anything about the specifics of what you described, the definition of the profiles, if the decision makers don't understand that there is a benefit in having people with these skills, then they will write profiles without them. And we have it in the commissioner. So we have basically, I don't know, 80% of the people are lawyers, not to denigrate lawyers, but then we have to try to teach them how to use how spatial information would be essential to the laws that are being written. To give the number, yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Because we just produce the same idea into the future, repeated across into the future. So I definitely see that is pretty endemic. But yeah, how to bridge that? It needs this, as I said, outflow from the GI community, people who decide, okay, I'm going to do something else, and that they do move into that area as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. We are coming back to you.
Okay, well, actually, I can add on to Simon, 80% lawyers and the other 20% are accountants. But anyway, that's a joke. So,
not to insult anyone.
It's a joke. Don't take me seriously. It's a joke. We've been in several EU projects, and I can tell you we deal with the EC accountants on a regular basis, so no problem. I was thinking of something else, actually, continuing on what Linda was saying. There is also another technique, a skill that unfortunately we are no longer using, and that is using a stereoscope to look at the landscape on aerial photographs. Nobody's doing that anymore. I mean, okay, when I was at ITC in Holland doing my master's a long time ago, we all did a mixture of everything, but we knew how to do geometric corrections, for example. I mean, nobody now knows that because the images come already done. I mean, and if we had problems in understanding something, we went back to using a stereoscope. And this is something I still do. We were working in North Africa some time ago and looking at this Landsat images at the time and thinking, we don't make sense of this. We're not making sense of this. So we got aerial photographs from the institution there. And I did a maps of the lagoons there using a stereoscope, which I knew was more real than I could get from the image. So this is also, because this skill is actually not being used in any universities anymore. And this is a very tactile image, and you're seeing 3D, you're looking at the landscape. And this is something also we're not doing. We're looking at just images all the time and believing what we're seeing. I mean, it's well, this is my 2 pennies worth for another skill that is being thrown out of the window, using a stereoscope.
I think nowadays we can see a lot of areas where we are really forgetting the roots or the classics or the basis and jumping on with the latest developments, but actually not really being critical of whether it's needed if you're not capable of completing the fundamentals, right? Any other immediate question from the audience? Do we have some question online? No, there are no questions. Well, unfortunately, we are running out of the time. But what I would like to conclude is what was.
And raised from Iris.
There is a question. Okay. Okay. So we have one question coming directly from the online participant. Please, Iris. We cannot hear you, unfortunately.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, please.
Yes. Really interesting discussion. I just wanted to come in from the angle of the bioeconomy and all the policy work. I'm addressing the policy chap, who I can't see. The bioeconomy strategy, I've worked as a civil servant, so, you know, in policy for 40 years. And we did a lot of work on the bioeconomy, and some of these skills would have been useful to apply to the bioeconomy, which is now called the circular bio. It's called Circular Bio Europe now. And but I know what policy is like. It's hard. It's hard to fit in everything. And I do agree with Anna and with Linda that a basis of geography would help everybody. A lot of the people I speak to don't know anything about agriculture at all, really, or the basics of the bioeconomy and why the Green Deal is great, but it's forgotten some of the basics that we spent years discussing in the bioeconomy strategy. Which is EU policy as well. And I think, like I'm based in the UK, like in the UK, when the different government departments work separately, so the industry people are pulling their own, you know, the Department of Environment doing its own thing. We need more holistic policy, and geography is more holistic in a way, because you're looking at actual localities and what those localities need, which I agree with. But it's really hard for policy people to encompass all this. So we do need more holistic teams, even within Brussels, to know what the bioeconomy strategy said, not just, you know, the base science. That's my view.
Yeah, thank you, Iris. So it's just kind of like validating what we were discussing and the need for the interdisciplinary approaches to nowadays challenges and really ability.
Can I comment?
Yes, please, Simon. Yes.
Absolutely. And I think that there's one or two really nice concrete examples of, I don't want to give too many negative examples, but I think one of them, in fact, I would rather not give any negative examples, of course.
That's how you learn.
But I will, let's focus on one, which is the obvious use of, I'd mentioned forest before, but woody biomass, and whether it's used for energy or whether it's used for materials. The whole concept of the bio-based economy and the sourcing of the feedstock basically for it, whether it goes to chemical industry or producing plastics or producing tables, etc., it all comes down to the same thing: where you're going to get it from. And up to about some years ago, there was a very simplistic assumption that basically, it's just out there and is available. Until, of course, there was a lot of awareness raised on the pain points of where the exploitation of forest biomass or agriculture biomass started to hit the buffers a little bit in terms of what was available. Latvia is a good example actually, but also Estonia is another very good one, which has been last year a lot in the political spotlight. And I agree completely that one of the difficulties that I see is that in the people who are, I mean, whether they're in just research and development, they're focused on the downstream, what I would view as the downstream part of the bioeconomy. And they are blind, or even willfully blind, to collecting information about how the impact would be integrated. I'm a bit hesitant on holistic, because that really is very ambitious, but integrated to the development and the sourcing of the materials that are inevitably going to be more and more needed for the bioeconomy, for climate. I mean, the whole economy will be, in 2050, the bioeconomy. And therefore, the spatial, I know there's going to be some laughter in the background there, particularly from Anna.
Yeah, we're going up and down on this, yes.
But that essentially is the plan, and the objective is if you look at it, we don't have much fossil-based carbon in the system. The carbon is biocarbon. So therefore you have a full bioeconomy. But how are you going to provide that? How are you going to circularize it? How are you going to make sure that it's sustainable? And I didn't mention, but I'll plug it now, that the proposal we have under development on certifying carbon removals is very much linked to knowing where it is. I think we have a very strong realization in our team that the key to having this working properly is knowing where it is. So we fully agree, but there is indeed a difficulty for the, I call them downstream parts of the bioeconomy, to have them aware that the spatial awareness of what they're doing and the sourcing and the production of these materials is crucial.
Well, thank you. Thank you to all the panelists, and thanks for your interventions. Unfortunately, the time is the only thing we cannot control, really. It's just going whether we want it or not, and we have to come to the concluding remarks. But I think you really highlighted in the discussion also the opportunities through the challenges, but the opportunities for the EO4GEO Alliance. To address the need for more of the transversal skills, for the let's say need to be more skilled in translating, as you said, flowing out, letting the EOGI sector releasing the knowledge and being able to really convey that knowledge to different other sectors, and so to be more heard and to be more utilized. But at the end, I would like all of you three, one by one, to say the final, let's say, thoughts or food for thought for the EO4GEO Alliance that you would like us to take with us, to reflect on and to act on, to really to address this skills gap that we see that is demanded and that is being supplied. So why don't we start with the lady, since Simon is here in presence. Anna, so what will be your final wishes or final thoughts?
Well, my final thought is to stay looking at the wider picture, always. Use your right brain to see a more broader picture of the world we live in, not a narrow beam of what is where the technology is taking us. We need to stay with open eyes and be realistic. I am not pessimistic, I am realistic. So we need to stay in that frame of mind and use our community to actually go and solve problems. We need to solve problems. With all the UN agendas and the Green Deal, we are still facing the same environmental problems. They haven't gone away all these decades. They're still there. So it's up to each individual of us in this community to start doing things that have an effect, that will make an impact. And I see this as our, as I said, responsibility. So I wish everybody good luck in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And Linda?
Yeah, I mean, like looking at this from a citizen perspective, get citizens involved at all levels as much as you can, from, primary schools, high schools, get more stuff into the higher education and just really get citizens involved. And then a second comment might just be picking up again on this idea of having interdisciplinary teams. So not having 80% lawyers, I'm joking. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know the makeup. But if I look at our group, we are so interdisciplinary, and we could not do this work without having all of those skills. And maybe we're lucky because we managed to assemble them, but really look for that complementarity, and we play to each other's skills. So I don't do any data processing anymore because there are simply better people in my team to do it. And I focus on the things that I'm better at. So that would be my...
Thank you, Linda. And we conclude with the final words of Simon.
So yeah, I was trying to sort of see how I could see a bit of evolution, and I think what I see is first is a much more systematic view of the skill sets that people in this community have, which I think is really interesting. And a couple of the presentations this morning showed that. Particularly the one from Jim, where it was clear that the organizational structure inside the company was very clear to understand the kind of skills that people will have to come and work in the team. The risk that I see, I don't think there's not a criticism, but it's a risk for any kind of community would be that that there becomes a reason for doing this. The remote sensing community has had this problem in the past. We do it because it's about the remote sensing, and then it's go and look for the problem. But I think we're beyond that now. But we should be aware that we shouldn't fall back onto that, and that by making sure that we're looking outside the box, then we will find the connections to help solve the solutions. And those skills are different from the ones that you learn as a programmer, or that you learn as someone who used to be able to wind two handles and use the foot at the same time. They need to be developed. Inevitably, they'll need to be developed to connect to policy.
Thank you so much. And I would like to thank once again all the three panelists for the enriching discussion and food for thought, and also the conference attendees for posting the questions and expressing opinions as well. So with that, I would like to conclude the panel discussion, and the most sincere thanks on behalf of the organizers for agreeing to be part of the panel and also giving the presentations. Thanks a lot. And to really conclude the conference, I would like to give the floor for the final words to the two key persons behind the EO4GEO project and the EO4GEO Network and Alliance. And we will start with the scientific coordinator, Danny van der Broek, for the summarizing thoughts and wishes for all of us who have gathered in this event.
Okay, thanks for giving me the words. I will not give a full summary because I heard so much over the past 2 days. That's maybe my first comment, or
maybe if the people online
you come here, yes. Okay. So they can see you.
Can we see the speaker? Be that we are online. Is it possible to see the speaker?
We can see. Yeah, he is.
Can you see me now?
Yeah.
I'm here. Hello. Do you see me?
But we're not seeing you. I'm not seeing you.
Ah, strange.
Well, then you have this opportunity to imagine.
I would like to
use the right phrase.
But you know me because you were the reviewer of one of our projects. Okay, anyway, that was a joke. Okay, so I will just talk a little bit, not too long, because we have lunch. So it was quite impressive to see all the interventions over the past 2 days. So today, but also the speakers from the Commission is concluding that there is a lot of things happening regarding skills development, definition of occupational profiles, development of training, no problem. It's registered, recorded. So that's my first observation. So there is a rich ecosystem working on the topic. We are not alone. We also observed from our own project that we are known, but we are growing also. So we have the participants, the partners, but we have also associated partners that is still growing, etc. So we have a rich community, and it seems that there is indeed a real requirement to work on skills development in one or another way. Regarding this, we need to keep in mind, we need to be dynamic, flexible. There is not one single solution. So our project also does not have the ambition to deliver a package with 5 profiles and what you have to study. And that's it. No, it's a little bit more complex, and we already tried to do that. There were several confirmations of that in the discussion in the panel, but also in the other interventions, that case-based learning, other ways of learning, different formats, etc. is key, and that we need to be open-minded for not only for the formats, but also the definition of the content, and that should also evolve. even if we focus on certain particular aspects and technologies and the use of the data, it's not only about that. So also coming back, transversal skills is repeated by many, and that's a little bit beyond what we usually think about transversal skills. So it's not only about communication, being able to work in a team or being able to give a good presentation. It's a lot more. I would also say there is a link to what we discussed now in the panel. Geography has been mentioned. I'm geographer myself, social geographer, by the way. But I would rather call it spatial thinking. It's not about the data and the technology, but thinking spatially about what you see in your environment, whether you work in clima or in agriculture or in on other topics or on the environment, transport, mobility, tourism, whatever. Spatial thinking is like a basic skill, let's say, for any person almost working somewhere somehow, but also for young people. And that's another thing that is coming back over the past 2 days, is that we have a very mixed audience. We do not only focus on academic or professionals, but we say we want to broaden that. We want to go to young people. We want to reach them. We want to think about how we can reach the schools. We want directly connection to the citizens. It's all in the strategy, and that's maybe my last comment. I was really surprised that many people already were looking or reading the strategy, referring to it, knew about it, because I thought nobody knows about it. Usually you write documents and then it's somewhere in the cupboard and it's not read anymore or not used anymore. But it seems the document also for us is a good basis to start from. And to have next actions and activities, which we are envisaging in the long-term action plan. And the only thing I also draw as a conclusion, there's so much work still to be done, so that we need all of you and more, even not only the people in the room and online, but many other organizations, many other people to contribute to that. And I think, and that will be also, I think, stressed by Milva, that there will be many opportunities, and it's just a call to, if you're not yet associate member, etc., to do it, and just to, well, pop in the network, in the ecosystem, and working together, and different disciplines and different people, and then we try to solve things together. So that's my take of the future.
Yeah, many thanks. It is really for me a great honor to have this final words after this very engaging conference. And me too, as Danny, I'm really impressed by the quality, the relevance of the speakers and the intervention we had. We can all notice and appreciate also the variety of viewpoints, angles that we managed to bring here all around the same table. And also, I said yesterday, it is really important that we managed to have also stakeholders from business showing really with enthusiasm. I saw how they can really put into practice and use the products of EO4GEO. We had experiences presented by companies, but we had also testimonials by the European Space Agencies, by USPA, and by DigiDefis and other key stakeholders. And maybe it is the first, but only the first of a series, I hope, time we really could have a joint discussion all together in the same occasion. So I hope there will be other occasions like this. And coming back to the thanks, to the organizer, I wish to renovate a big bravo to Climate Kick and to also Nereus for supporting them. It has not been an easy task. there have been some technical problem, but it was really quite a challenge to manage all this in a hybrid mode with moderating people online and in presence. But I think this is a kind of best practice we can take away from this moment. And of course, how not to say big thanks to our great moderator, Ines. You were quite strict, not that much, and so everything went smoothly thanks to you. And of course, in general, a big thanks to everybody for your great commitment along the project. Thanks to the distinguished speakers, to the panelists, to everybody. We really hope this is only the start. If you're not, as Dennis said, if you're not in the Alliance, please pop in. There is a lot to do, a lot of opportunities for everybody. And we want to keep our engagement, our commitment to rely on trust and collaboration and to go on with a collective approach to skills development in the EOGI sector. So that, many thanks again, everybody, and hope to see you soon back in another EO4GEO event.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
On my side, there is just one last comment. The practical announcement. You will receive the evaluation forms for this event. So please do not delay them or postpone the fulfillment of the forms as they will be super important for the project as well as for the planning of next events. And be honest also to give your thoughts and on the formats and various aspects of the event. So once again to all of you, and especially to the team that was really supporting all this, Kevin, Stefka, Beatrice, and Francesco. So thanks a lot. And we wish all of you good luck. Stay safe. Take good care of yourself and your loved ones. And thanks for joining this event. And as all the speakers said, we hope that we will see each other in new settings, new contexts, new events in the future. So all the best. And we have the good and productive work in the EO4GEO project meetings, right? Thanks all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.